When last we met, I thought it might be a good idea, since we're at the Grail chapter, and we only have about 218 pages, so sad, to go in a Glastonbury romance. We might want to touch base for a second about what's going on. Now, I don't know how much I know of what's going on, but I thought I'd go look at the character sheet. See if I can remember. Oh, let's start with the chapters. Let's see if we remember what happens in each chapter. Okay. The first chapter is called The Will. That's where everybody is mostly introduced. That's where, who I thought at the time our protagonist was introduced, John Crow. I guess he's sort of the instigator of the plot, sort of like how Uncle Jesse is the instigator on Full House. He's the one who arrives at the house and kind of stirs everything up. So, to use that analogy for Glastonbury, John Crow is the one who arrives from out of town to hear their will of his father or grandfather, who recently died, and we meet the rest of his family, and we learn that this rich person, has left most of his money to Bloody Johnny, John Gurd, who's sort of an eccentric, but I don't think he's introduced yet in that chapter. And I was originally scandalized by John Crow's affair with his cousin, Mary Crow, as well as his feelings towards Tom Barter, which were, I thought, pretty, progressive, I guess, for the year the book was published. Then the river. That's a scene where John Crow is mostly with his cousin on the river, daydreaming, fantasizing about Tom Barter. Stonehenge. He goes to Stonehenge. He's on his way. John Crow is on his way to. For the most part, up to now, we're in John Crow's head. I think there's a part where we're in the corpse of his grandfather or whoever it is for a while. And that part I remember being pretty cool. In Stonehenge, he meets what's his face? Evans? Is that his name? I'm looking at the cast. Owen Evans, yes. And Owen Evans is Welshman, is obsessed with Merlin, the Grail quest, Stonehenge, in a kind of a druidic fashion. And he thinks he's like a sadistic sadist. He's always has these weird, kind of perverted thoughts, but they're not really. He seems more like a masochist, really, especially when he enters the pageant. But he perceives himself as a sadist who enjoys the suffering of others. Hic Jacet. Don't remember that chapter at all. White Lake Cottage. Don't remember that. Look of the Saint. Don't remember that. Carbonet Call. Don't remember. Wiki Hole, I assume, is where that chapter. I assume is the one where what's his face? Zoyland is introduced, the bastard son of the Marquis of P, and his wife, who's having an affair with what's his name? Okay, Nell Zoyland, Will Zoyland. Sam Decker. She's having an affair with Sam Decker. Will Zoyland wants to fuck her. He's his wife, and he's upset he can't. She's going off with what's his name, Sam Decker. Meanwhile, Sam Decker's father is Matt Decker, and he's a priest, and he also has he's kind of jealous of his son. He kind of wants to get with Nell Zoyland as well. So I think that's what happens at Wiki Hole. The Impartible Sin, I don't remember that. Garrett of Glastonbury, I guess that's where Garrett and his family is introduced. Consummation, don't remember that. Glorious Blow, don't remember that. King Arthur's Sword. King Arthur's Sword, I believe, might be the section where John Crow is walking around. He might be working for Garrett at this point, I'm not sure. And he sees a sword come out of the water, like the lady in the lake. And for some reason, seeing that superstitious thing makes him want to go against it. He becomes sort of anti-Grail. It becomes kind of evil in a way, if you think that's evil or not. So he's an interesting character. He's sort of amoral And he starts working for Gerd because Gerd pays him to be kind of like his publicist. And he's such a smarmy, kind of slick guy. He loves doing it. Maudie Thursday, don't remember that. Mark's Court. One of these chapters, I believe, it's the one where Gerd goes to visit Marquis of P, stays over there in the haunted Merlin room, and meets Marquis of P's daughter, Rachel Zoyland, I believe, or Rachel at least, who is seeing this like poor poet guy who's with the communists now, and runs the newspaper for the town. Silver Bowl, don't remember that. Mayday, don't remember that. Omens and Oracles, don't remember that. The Pageant, of course, that's the last chapter in Volume 1, it was sort of like where that section was leading to. Garrett inherited all this money, and he decided he wanted to have a big old pageant play where Owen Evans, that sadistic guy, acted as Jesus and had this strange psychedelic experience where he saw all the victims of everyone and kind of took the pain and suffering of them as the tormentor of them down through the ages, something like that. It was very weird, and he almost died. Also, what happened there is that there was kind of a lot of unrest in the town. The town almost killed the Marquis of P, who's kind of like the lord of the area, owns a lot of the land. Idolatry, don't remember that chapter. This is Volume 2 now. Tin, something happens where Red Robinson discovers tin. Red Robinson is like this like kind of proletariat communist, I guess. He's thinking about tin, something about tin, but then Philip Crowe is like this industrialist, very scientific, capitalist, discovers tin, and so he starts mining for tin in his mines. Wind and Rain, don't remember that. The Miracle. Nature Seems Dead. Conspiracy. The Conspiracy is where the communists and this new anarchist who was just introduced started talking about buying the land from the Marquis of P to then take over basically the mining situation, have kind of like a communist mine. The Christening, that was a good chapter. I remember that one. Christening was the christening of what's her face's Nell Zoyland's son. That's actually Sam Decker's son. So there's lots of drama where Will Zoyland is basically was he kicked? I think she's kicked out by him, or she leaves. And he's having an affair with, at this point, Persephone, who was the wife of this other communist guy. Not such an interesting character, I don't think, but she was also with Phil. She just doesn't think she can love. She's kind of finding herself, let's say. Saxon Arch, that was the scene. Kind of reminiscent of the pageant where Garrett has now spent the money to make he's trying to make like a Disney World basically of Grail lore. So he put up this big Saxon arch that's of that time period. And now the next chapter is the Grail, which is where we're at now. But before we continue, let's just look at the characters again. So John Geard, another important character. Unfortunately, I know what happens to him because I read a fucking article a month ago about this book, and this stupid douchebag writer of it gives away a huge plot point in it, not thinking that somebody who's devoted, a considerable amount of time to read a 1,200-page book does not want a fucking spoiler. Anyway, John Gerd is kind of, he's the Mayor Quimby of the town, basically. I kind of consider Glastonbury reminiscent of The Simpsons for some reason. It reminds me of Springfield, all the characters. So he's the Mayor Quimby. But he's charismatic and a bit of a idiot savant. But he has he apparently just resurrected a child from the dead recently. Megan's his wife. She's She's a native, I think, of the area. Cordelia and Crummy are their daughters. Now, one of them is a bit looser than the other, shall we say, in modern parlance, but I forget which one is which. One of them, I believe, was being wooed by Red Robinson, and might be with Tom Barter now, but I could be wrong about that. Philip Crowe is the industrialist, kind of a skeezy, Gordon Gekko type. Tilly is his wife. She's just kind of been a ditz throughout. She kind of reminds me of, surprisingly though, I think she's can be sort of like All in the Family, that lady. So she's not. I don't think she's as dumb as she portrays sometimes. John and Mary Crowe. I went over them considerably. Mary Crowe is. She was originally with Tom Barter, and she's. It's unclear why she hitches her post with John all the time. Elizabeth Crowe, I thought she would be a bigger character. She really wasn't. She's not in this so much. She was the daughter of the late Canon Crowe, who's the rich man who dies at the beginning, and she's just mostly off scene. Persephone Spear, I just went over. Dave Spear, that's her husband. He's a communist, and he's the half brother of Nell Zoyland. Nell is the woman who was in love with Sam Decker and had his illegitimate child, but she's married to Will Zoyland, who's kind of just like this. He's kind of a fun character. He's just like a real asshole, just like a real like hunting asshole. Kind of reminds me of that song. Hey Buffalo Bill, no, hey Bungalow Bill, whatever it is. He reminds me of that. The Marquis of P. He's like the rich man of the town. He's the father of Lady Rachel Zoyland, who I just mentioned, who's becoming kind of a communist right now. She is kind of independent. Edward Atling is the poet who's going out with Lady Rachel and runs the newspaper in town, and he's also a bit of a communist. Euphemia Drew, one of my favorite names, is a spinster and works for Mary Crowe's employer. She's one of the ones who has one of those impenetrable accents that I can't do. Tom Barter is kind of a playboy. He's an aviator. He worked for Philip Crowe for a while. He's buddies and maybe lovers with John Crowe. He's a womanizer. I believe he was working for John Garrett. I don't know what he's doing now. I forget. I know he's going steady with one of the. I think Cordelia Crummy or somebody else. Maybe Tossie Stickles. He might be with her now. I forget. Owen Evans. He's the sadist. He runs an antique store or works at an antique store. He's kind of kooky, very kooky character. One of my favorites. Matt Decker. He's the vicar of Glastonbury. Not very interesting. He's kind of the more conservative religious figure of the town, but he's also a naturalist, and he's jealous of his son for his affair with Nell Zoyland. Sam Decker is his son. Again, not one of my favorite characters. I believe sort of biographically similar to John Cowper Powys. But recently, or within the last 300 pages or so, he had a weird religious conversion where now he worships some kind of weird, bizarre idea of Jesus, and sees Jesus as sort of like a chaos maker, I think, against the All-Father. So basically, he's a Satanist, but he's calling Jesus Satan, and but he's acting like a very monk and kind of not hoity-toity, but sort of what's the word I'm thinking of? He's trying to act benevolent, but it seems very phony, and he basically screwed over Nell Zoyland, because even though it's her son, and he was like, "Oh, I love you, run away with me." He's kind of abandoned her so far. Maybe he'll change. I don't know. Dr. Charles Montague Fell is kind of he's a disciple of Epictetus, it says here. He's kind of a good character that's in there every once in a while, kind of a cynic. Always had some good lines. Barbara, his sister, I think they live together. Titty Petherton, another one of my favorite names. She was a cancer patient that was in terrible agony and seemed to be dying, but John Gerd miraculously cured her, or soothed her, and she seems to be better now. Red Robinson, I already went over him. He's a formerly foreman at the Crow Dye Works. He's a communist, and he has one of those impenetrable slangs, although it seems like he's kind of putting it on a little bit. He's kind of slumming a little bit. Penny Pitches, servant at the Deckers. Other than her name, I don't really remember much about her. Oh, Nancy Robinson. She's a cousin of Red and Titty's nurse. Another character that's kind of one of those like, hi, sorry, dog, go, ba-da-ba-ba-da-da. So I kind of forget all about them. Abel Twig and Bartholomew Joes are number 1 and number 2, and they're old cronies. So one of them, I think, works at a brothel of sorts. And the other one is a chauffeur or something like that. Isaac Weatherwax, gardener at the Deckers, and Euphemia Drews. Again, another name I like, although he's not really in there that much. Lillian Louis Rogers, sister is housemaid and cook at Miss Drew. Again, characters that blend all together to me. Tossie Stickles, Elizabeth Crow's servant. Nancy Stickles, the devoted disciple of Mr. Geard. Now, Nancy Stickles, I believe, was having an affair with Persephone for a while. I don't know what happened with that. Mother Leg, Procuress. So I think she kind of owns a brothel of sorts. But last time it was said it wasn't a brothel, so I don't know what the hell it's supposed to be. Bet Chinook, a madwoman. She's a good character. She's totally bald and in love with John Crow. And recently she was off with some other guy. Young Toosie, doorkeeper at Mother Leg's other house. Oh, okay, so that's the character I thought was number 2. So now I'm confused about who number 1 and number 2 are exactly. But, okay. Jenny Morgan, Philip Crow's former mistress. Okay, Jenny Morgan, I think Red Robinson was trying... Oh, okay. Red Robinson was trying to woo Jenny Morgan for a while. Nancy Robinson is Red Robinson's mother, I believe, even though it's not said here. Nancy Robinson is kind of a religious person and very devoted to Matt Decker in that way, I believe. Anyway, Jenny Morgan. And then Morgan Nellie. Nellie Morgan is the unrecognized little daughter of Philip Crow. So she appeared recently. Finn Toller, alias Codfin. Okay, Finn Toller is kind of a weird creep that was telling, I believe, Red Robinson recently that he was willing to kill Philip Crow, and then he went off with Mad Bet, who wanted him to get a voodoo doll, or I don't know. They were doing something weird together, and I think he's got a little crush on her. Elfin Cantle, a boyfriend of Sam Decker. I think he's just kind of like a wussy, kind of meek guy that Sam Decker has kind of patronizingly befriended. Paul Trent, solicitor, a philosophical anarchist. So I believe he's a character who's kind of introduced newly. He's like really tan, comes from an island or something, very slick. John Beer, he's a lawyer that I always forget. Angela Beer is his daughter. And then there's Jackie Jones, Sis, and Bert Cole, which are members of Morgan Nellie's robber band, and they're kind of like the little rascals of the book, as if we need more characters. And this takes place in Glastonbury, environs, in the present. Okay, so that helps a little bit, I guess. But if you have any questions before we continue on with the rest of the book, pop them down below in the comments. Like and follow this page, YouTubers. Till next time, cheers. We'll start in Grail next time. Bye-bye.